Today, the basics of the U.S. military. Our present structure is a result of the National Security Act of 1947. It helped to create the U.S. Air Force, and this was restructured, it restructured the War Department into the Department of Defense. So, Department of Defense is headed up by a civilian. The Secretary of State is a civilian, so that just means somebody who is non-military, and they are appointed by the President. And they are the head of three military departments: the Department of the Army, Department of the Air Force, and Department of the Navy. Now, each of these are headed up by civilian service secretaries who are also appointed by the President. And these three military departments are in charge of our five military branches, which are the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. So, each one of these five military branches has its own flag officers, basically the people who are the highest ranking. And the Army is commanded by a four-star general who is known as the Army Chief of Staff, and he reports to the Secretary of the Army. The Air Force is commanded by the Air Force Chief of Staff, who is also a four-star general, and they report to the Department or the Secretary of the Air Force. The Navy is commanded by the Chief of Naval Operations, who is a four-star admiral, and they report to the Secretary of the Navy. The Marines are commanded by the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and they are a four-star general, and they also report to the Secretary of the Navy. Now, the Coast Guard is kind of interesting because it does not fall under the Department of Defense. Until recently, it was under the Department of Transportation, but a couple years ago, they moved it to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, it's still considered a military service because during times of war or times of conflict, the President can transfer any or all of the Coast Guard assets to the Department of the Navy. So they have to be up to snuff, kind of thing. The Coast Guard are commanded by the Coast Guard Commandant, who is a four-star admiral, and they report to the Secretary of Homeland Defense. Now, the functions of the different branches, the Army, we'll start with them first. The Army is our main ground force. They defend and protect with ground troops, with armor, which is like tanks, artillery, attack helicopters, tactical nuclear weapons, things along that line. They are our oldest military service. They began in 1775, and they are also our largest military service, having approximately 76,000 officers and roughly 400,000 enlisted members in active duty. They are supported by two reserve forces, the Army Reserves and the Army National Guard. Now, the primary differences between reserves and National Guard: the reserves are owned, by the federal government, and the National Guard is owned by the states. So that's kind of the difference. The reserves is more of a national government, and National Guard is more of a state thing. So each state has their own National Guard. It's still a national thing, but it's more locally concerned with the states. Now, the President can activate state National Guard members in times of need. And so if we're in a time of war, or if we need to send troops to settle a conflict or anything, or if we need troops in the UN rotation, he can send National Guard members at any time. The Air Force is the youngest military service. It was created in 1947. Its primary mission is to defend the U.S. through air and space. It operates fighter aircraft, tanker aircraft, light and heavy bomber aircraft, transport aircraft, and helicopters. It's also responsible for all the military satellites and controls all of our strategic nuclear ballistic missiles. It has roughly 69,000 commissioned officers on active duty and about 288 enlisted members, and it is supplemented by the Air Force Reserves and the Air National Guard. The Navy was officially established in 1775. Its primary mission is to maintain the freedoms of the seas that are in the U.S. interest. It helps to supplement the Air Force air power. Navy aircraft carriers can deploy to areas where a fixed runway is impossible. So, like if we don't have an island with a fixed runway, the Navy aircraft carriers serve as our runway kind of thing. Aircraft carriers carry about 80 aircraft, and most of them are fighters or fighter bombers. Navy ships can attack land targets with heavy guns and cruise missiles, and Navy submarines allow stealth attacks. The Navy is also primarily responsible for the transporting of Marines to areas of conflict. In the Navy, we have roughly 54,000 active officers and right around 325,000 enlisted personnel. They are supported by the Navy Reserves. There is no Navy National Guard. The next group are the Marine Corps, and they're often referred to as the infantry of the Navy. They specialize in amphibious operations, basically the assault, capture, and control of beachheads, which provide routes to attack the enemy from almost any direction. So they provide some key elements. The Marine Corps were established in 1798 and in recent years have expanded their ground combat operations, so beyond the amphibious assault into ground combat operations. Generally, they are a lighter force compared to the Army, so they can be deployed faster. So that's why Marines tend to be the first ones we send in, because they are able to deploy faster. The Marines like to be self-sufficient, so they have their own air power as well. They have their own fighter, they have their own fighter bomber aircraft, and they have their own attack helicopters. Now, the Marines use the Navy for much of their logistical and administrative support. For example, there are no doctors, nurses, or enlisted medics in the Marines. They get that support from the Navy. Medics that accompany them are specially trained Navy medics. With the exception of the Coast Guard, the Marines are the smallest service. They have roughly 18,000 officers and about 153,000 enlisted personnel in active duty. They are supported by the Marine Corps Reserves. There is no Marine Corps National Guard. The Coast Guard was established in 1790, and it was reformed to the current Coast Guard standards in 1915. In peacetime, their primary concern is law enforcement, boating safety, sea rescue, and illegal immigration control. In times of conflict, part or all of Coast Guard resources can be transferred to the Department of Navy. Their arsenal consists of ships and boats, aircraft, and shore stations that can conduct a variety of missions. They are the smallest military service, having 7,000 officers and roughly 29,000 enlisted personnel, and they are supported by the Coast Guard Reserves.